Hello guys, welcome to another Maturaexpress stream. I'm Chris and be continued. So at the beginning of the stream I really like to apologize since we had some major technical difficulties with our stream today, unfortunately. But now we're ready to do the stream and talk about our topic, which is at first how to introduce yourself and how to give a monologue. We've already talked about that topic, and that's a quick revision of this topic today. So I hope you guys already know something about this topic, or almost everything, I hope. And we're gonna jump right into it with the overview. So at first we're gonna talk about using the red thread to introduce yourself. Then we're gonna show you some useful phrases, giving a general self-introduction. Then useful phrases for talking about your education and useful phrases for talking about your career. And last but not least, we're gonna practice and demonstrate it with some examples of the self-introductions. So, at first, of course, a red thread is always important to use. It's not wise to start off jumping from one topic to another topic or one aspect to another. So just be sure to have a red thread through your introduction. It's not a big deal, an introduction, but you should have a red thread through it. So we came up with the idea that you always have to be polite. Therefore, we wrote down, say thanks. Be careful to integrate both your past and your present. So, what is your name, your age, hobbies, and maybe something special. For example, if you have a special hobby or you want to work in a very specific field, mention it and get the communication going with your examinee, with your examiner. I'm sorry, and of course explain what you're going to do in the future, why you're doing the A levels, and so on. Then we're gonna move on to the useful phrases. So, of course, an introduction should always start with, hello, it's nice to meet you, my name is blah blah blah, I'm from this and that town, this or that town. So, I currently live in, or I've been living in Innsbruck my whole life. And what do you do? So what do you currently? Of course, you're doing the A levels, but mention your hobbies, present yourself a little bit. Don't exaggerate the topic, but talk about yourself and try to integrate some useful things the examiner could just remember. So I think it's always more interesting if you have a candidate that has something special or likes to talk about himself or about his hobbies. And of course, what do you do in your free time? I enjoy blah, 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 and explain why. Always explain why and just be your normal you. You don't have to play a role at this point. Then we're gonna jump into the topic of using useful phrases about your education. So, for example, I have been learning English for that amount of time since I was in secondary school, for example, or since I started the A levels. Maybe it's that short, but I don't hope so. But yeah, sometimes some people learn quick. So, and why are you at the VFI? Which additional courses are you taking? So just be creative with this part, and of course explain why you are taking the A levels, why you have been studying that hard to achieve the goal of passing the A levels. And yeah, that's basically it with talking about education. So we're gonna move on to talking about your career, which is of course similar to the education point. Explain what you've been doing your whole life until you started attending the VFI courses for the A levels. So I've been a mechanic for almost 10 years or something. Or I was a shop assistant. Maybe you also could mention, if you had multiple jobs in the past, mention it, and just be sure to stay focused and just try to explain why you're doing the A levels. But we already talked about that topic, so we're gonna jump into the practice and demonstration. So don't forget to react to your examiner's questions. Sometimes the examiners, of course, get bored. They have a lot of examinees on that day, so be interactive, react to the questions of them, even if it's just at the stage of the self-introduction. You all know we do the demonstration exams, and just watch one of the demonstration exams, how we're doing or how we practice the introduction. So normally the examiner would like to ask you if you could introduce yourself, and then you just start off what we now explained to you step by step. And you can also give the examiners something to laugh about. Of course, that's possible. It's not that serious. Laughing is important, as we always say in the English streaming team.
You do, yes.
Yeah. My colleague agrees, of course.
Yes.
Yes, and that's basically it from the part of the self-introduction. So I'm gonna just switch to the topic of how to give a monologue. We already talked about this topic too, so you can also find the other version we did on our YouTube playlist. So that's a revision again. So how to give a monologue. Very easy actually, but of course there are things to consider and to be aware of. And at first we're gonna talk about how, I think I have to move in this direction, how to analyze the exam situation. I'm gonna just mention it a little bit since it's not the actual topic of today. Then we talk about how to structure a monologue, introduction, how to useful phrases for a monologue, useful presentation skills, and practice and demonstration of monologue introductions. So at first, it's always important to analyze the situation, of course, which is part of the monologue. You have to know who you are, so which role you are in. Therefore, you have to know who you are, what your who is your audience. Is it a talk? Is it a seminar? Are you in a school? Are you somewhere else? And with this in mind, you have to carefully carefully prepare your monologue, of course, because different situations require different vocabulary, for example, or phrases. Is it a formal? Is it very formal, your presentation or your seminar, or is it a bit more not informal? So not that formal. I hope it's not an informal talk. Normally we don't do that. So yeah, but adjust yourself to the topic. That's important. So at first, think about the role you're in. So you're an expert in, teacher, or something else. Who is your audience? Then, what are the objectives of your tasks? So I have an example here. For example, the role of sport and the Olympics in our society. It was an exam situation or an oral exam we did. Yeah, and then for which type of situation are you in? So is it a talk, a presentation, a seminar, etc.? Be sure to know all those 4 points, and then you're gonna be 100% focused on what you're doing during your monologue. I guarantee you. So start off, of course, introduce yourself. We already had that. Try to come up with a catchy phrase that draws the audience's attention. I know sometimes you won't remember a catchy phrase for every topic, but of course the advantage of this and the advantage of your preparation time is that you can prepare yourself even before the exam and think about a catchy phrase to a topic. Of course, sometimes there won't be a catchy phrase, you're nervous and all that stuff, but it's interesting to start with a phrase like drug abuse, for example, affects a lot of people nowadays, and blah, blah, blah. Just an example. So you draw the audience's attentions, and of course the audience in this case are the examiner. Then tell the audience what you're going to do or what you're going to talk about. Otherwise, they won't know. If you just jump into the deep end and you're in the middle of your topic, nobody gonna know, and nobody gonna know what you're doing. And of course, even if you talk about what you're going to talk about, then the audience, the examiner, are aware what they're going to hear, and they can make notes, and it's just easier to follow. And of course, it's then an advantage for you. And useful phrases for the monologue, or for a monologue, of course, there are a lot of more phrases out there, but it's just what came into our minds, what we prepared. And of course, you start with good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just remember, you're now in your role. You're not Hansi somewhere else. Yeah, you're in your role as an expert, for example. My name is blah 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 from the company Greenpeace or something, and I've been asked by somebody, or maybe you haven't been asked by somebody, or maybe you applied to hold a talk or give a presentation about any given topic. And yeah, today I'm gonna talk about something, and the catchy phrase appears again, and I've written down an example. Nowadays, obesity has become one of the most frequent causes for cancer or other diseases. It's just a very dramatic introduction into a topic, but I think it will draw the audience's attention. So, and with this help, you can create your own catchy phrase. And of course, presentation skills are very important. Although you're sitting in the exam, you should be aware of some of the fundamental presentation skills. So try to avoid hums, ams. I know I sometimes always do it too, but yes, it happens. But try to avoid it. Try to look at the audience, have eye contact, very important. Try to speak as freely as possible, although you have your sheet in front of you, which you have written down your whole preparation of your task. Try to present as freely as possible, because then you can focus on your own and not only focus on the sheet you've prepared. Then do not cross your arms. That's just something that's more or less impolite, and yeah, it's a attitude towards that says just leave me alone. So yes, which and the same goes for your posture, of course. If you're sitting like this, or have your back is not straight or something, of course if you have something like a physical condition, then it's something different, but try to sit straight and focus on your posture, and then the talking will be a lot easier. So, and try to speak clear and articulate. So yeah, I think that's very obvious, but I'd like to mention it so that you can best prepare yourself for the oral A-levels. And then we're doing some practice. So you all know how it works. We have the introduction of the oral exam. Do we have some comments already?
No.
Okay. So we have the introduction, of course. We all know that. You will be asked some questions about your career, future plans, etc. The things we already discussed in the first part of this stream. And then, in this case, task 1, the modern family, which is always a role play monologue speaking, 3 to 4 minutes. So be sure to don't talk that much, or you don't have to talk 10 minutes. Just focus on discussing the most essential points in these 3 to 4 minutes. In this case, it's the situation you work as a family counselor, which you should highlight. Family counselor, you know who you are. You have been asked to hold a seminar. You have to hold a seminar for families, which is the audience. And the next thing is the topic. So the objectives, basically, on modern family life. Very important for the objectives, of course, the 3 bullet points we list here. In this case, it's the different types of family, how families have changed over the past decades, and reason for these changes. Try to integrate every bullet point and try to mention it at the beginning of your monologue. And yeah, I have some more examples. They're basically, in this case, you're the head teacher from a media department. In this case, here at the college, and you have been asked to hold a seminar for whom interested persons. So could be everyone, could be parents, could be teenagers, could be, I don't know, grandparents. And the topic is mass media in our modern world. And then we have again the 3 bullet points, which basically start with a definition of something that lets you jump into the topic really slowly, so that you best can structure your monologue, actually, because we want to help you passing the exam, of course. And then another situation, but I think you have already figured out how it works, given the introduction and the monologue. And always be sure to focus on the things we talked about. Have a loss and don't hesitate, don't speak fast. Yeah, and we are actually finished for today with this stream. It was awesome that you tuned in again, and we're really sorry that we had to start the stream a little bit later than the scheduled time, but keep it up, and we see each other next week.